Good morning, everyone. Um, First of all, I'd like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me as one of the speakers today. Um, my expertise is the medical science, particularly the microbiology and immunology and the infectious diseases. I've been involved in the basic research in this field for about 40 years. After just 3 years of the experience as a physician when I was young in the hospital. One of my tasks today is to emphasize and to let you know that the infectious disease is a medical problem, should be regarded as one of the future the issue that should be involved in the hazardous the disasters. Whenever we hear any news of some earthquakes or something like that, like this today, this morning they had the terrible earthquakes and followed by the tsunami. Fortunately, the outcome was not so bad. We feel day by day that something is getting much worse in our mighty nature or the Mother Earth, and also even in the society which had been created by ourselves is getting something is wrong, particularly when we hear the outcome of the president election in the US. I don't go into the detail of the problem in the human society. But it is clear that every one of us are very much concerned about these issues. We always ask whether we are able to keep the sustainability of our mighty nature or Mother Earth, and also the stability of the society. And among them, there are numbers of the issues confronting the current global society, including the water supply, climate change, food supply, the problem, the energy shortage, terrorism, ethnic conflict, and poverty, and also the overpopulation on the earth. And the main topic of this symposium is natural disasters. And we have a variety of the different types of the natural disasters, as we know, including earthquakes, tsunami, typhoon in Japan, and some volcanic eruptions is very close to us, like in Masao or in Sakurajima or in Kyushu. But in the other continent, they have the very terrible wildfire or tornado or global warming and desertification. But in addition to these typical type of the natural disasters, I would like to add the infectious diseases, especially the particular type of the infectious diseases. Basically, the infectious disease is just one of the type of the disease, which is the personal issues, the individual issues, not for the society, not affecting the society. But some of the infectious diseases had been terrified or threatened the human beings in the past. Let me show some of the examples in the past, and let's consider together about the meaning of that experience in the past. This is the list of the top 10 causes of the death in the world, which was reported a couple of years ago from the WHO. As you know, most of the people in developed countries are concerned about the cancer and the cerebrovascular strokes, and the cardiovascular diseases, major three. However, according to the ordering of the cause of the disease in the whole world, the cancer does not go to one or two reasons cause of this. The number one is a heart disease, heart attack. Second is a cerebrovascular or brain attack. And number three is a lower respiratory tract infections. Number four is a chronic obstructive lung disease. Maybe I'm a very bad, very heavy smoker, so I'm sure I will suffer from the chronic obstructive lung disease in 5 or 10 years. And diarrhea diseases. It's not just the common diarrhea, which some of you may suffer, but the diarrhea diseases in the tropical or semi-tropical area are very severe and threatening the life, particularly the children. And as you know, HIV/AIDS and trachea, bronchus, lung cancer comes for the first time among the cancer as a number 7. And tuberculosis, an infectious disease caused by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which was discovered by the Robert Koch. And diabetes mellitus, and traffic accidents, and probably suicide. Anyway, so it looks very reasonable, even to the people from the developed countries. But I would like to emphasize that among these, if we pick up the infectious disease, okay, the number 3, lower infected respiratory tract infections are mainly caused by the bacteria and viruses. And the diarrhea, most of the diarrhea which is observed in the tropical or semi-tropical area are caused by the bacteria, mainly by bacteria, Shigella or Salmonella, and a special type of the Escherichia coli. And AIDS is apparently the infectious disease, a very unique type, but it's caused by the human immunodeficiency virus. And tuberculosis is the typical old-type infectious disease caused by the bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So if I pick up all these infectious diseases together, then the total number comprises the like the 15.9% of the total death, which go above the number 1 ischemic heart disease. So please understand that infectious disease are still the major concern among in this world. That is the number 1 message which I would like to deliver to you today. And also among the many infectious diseases, there are some type of the infectious disease which we should pay much more attention than the ordinary infectious disease, like acne or the periodontitis or just the upper respiratory tract infections, a common cold. The infectious disease of our concern is in general, highly transmissible one, like influenza, cholera, smallpox, and so on. And with high mortality, even if the transmission is very severe, if the natural cause is self-limited, and if it is spontaneously resolves in a day or two, it doesn't it will not threaten the human life. But even if the total number of the affected patients are small in number, if the mortality is very high, like Ebola, which we experienced a couple of years ago, it is very scary to every one of us. And if it affects even the traffic of the people, the travelers. And the infectious disease which we should pay much more attention is one which usually causes outbreak or pandemic. It's expanded very very quickly, like an influenza, or the cholera in some endemic area, or Ebola, MERS, and so on. And we should know that there are quite good numbers of the newly emerging and the re-emerging type of the infectious diseases. Okay. The AIDS, which appeared about 40 years ago in 1981, before that time, nobody has any idea about the possibility of the existence of the acquired immunodeficiency disease or the presence of the retrovirus, very unique type of the unknown virus until that time. And also, the one more type of the infectious disease caused by some unusual microbes is the drug resistance germs. So even if we cannot eliminate or eradicate the infectious diseases at all, as long as we have any highly effective drugs like a penicillin or streptomycin, for example, we will be all right. However, if these drugs becomes ineffective because of the resistance gene acquisition of the resistance gene by the microbes, the drug, it's something like that. There is no drugs at all. We can easily go back to the 60, 70 years back to the society where we did not have any antibiotics or any drugs. So let me show some example from which we can learn something which is useful even for the future. Now, first example is a plague, the Black Death. In Japanese, pesto or kokushibyou. This is a highly fatal infectious diseases caused by the bacteria, Yersinia pestis, which was identified by the Japanese microbiologist, Japanese bacteriologist Shibasaburo Kitasato, long time ago. But they reported very in detail by the bacteriologist Erison. So the name of the bacteria was, the priority of the naming was given to the Erison. So the Latin name of this bacteria is Yersinia pestis, in Japanese pestokin. One of the major interests of this type of the infection is that this is transmitted by means of the vectors, including animal vector, the rat, and the insect vector, flea. In Japanese, Keopis nezumi nomi and kuma nezumi. So it indicates, you can understand that this type of the infection can be transmitted by the flea or the rats, indicating that the sanitation is highly involved in the transmission of the disease in the environment. And we know there was a very terrible outbreaks in Europe a long time ago, in the 14th century. And during this terrible outbreak by the plague, the many people were killed. And this is the very famous painting by the Peter Bruegel, which is in the Prado Museum, under the title of The Triumph of Death, indicating the chaos of the Europe during the invasion of the plague. And this outbreak in the Europe was very famous, is still very famous, but even before the European outbreaks in the Europe, in the literature there is an indication of some outbreaks in much more in the past. The one is a plague of the Justinian, which took place in the started in Constantinople in the East Roman Empire, and then spread to the West. But the estimation is indicated that almost half of the European population then time was wiped out, the 50 million. And the typical Black Death outbreak happened in the 14th century. But even after that, there was the recorded outbreaks in London and the Masao in France. And this is the recently digged out the corpse of the victims in France. And in China, until quite recently, there was a sporadic, not outbreak type, but the sporadic existence of this disease, probably because of the presence of the flea and the rats and the very unsanitary life conditions. But we should be aware that the plague, this disease, has not been completely eliminated, eradicated, still present in some areas of Africa, India, and Vietnam, and China, and Mongolia. So there is still a possibility that spread out from some small endemic area to the world. And during the medieval outbreaks in Europe, we can learn something. Some of you may have been in the Vienna, in Italy, the beautiful place. But recently, the city of the Vienna smells a little bit bad because of the water's quality is getting very bad. But in any case, there is a small island named Lazzaretto Vecchio. And the Vienna city is on top of the lagoon and the water. But they have created some type of the place where they observe the incoming ships for the trading to prevent the invasion of the Black Death, which were carried by the ships, trading ships. Because in the medieval days, the port, the main port and the main city, big cities, are very important in the trading. So without knowing the cause of the disease, the presence of bacteria, or the involvement of the flea or rat, they have learned that something is coming with people or by the ship. So they established the quarantine, which is in Japanese, keneki, to prevent from the place to prevent from the contagious disease coming in. And this is the remnant of the Lazzaretto Vecchio, which has been digged out quite recently and shown in the National Geographic about 10 years ago. And what I would like to emphasize is that the people were very smart in understanding that the mode of the transmission, without knowing the very basic science, and try to prevent the invasion of the disease into the city. Then what they did was they ordered, or they asked all the trading ships which are coming into the Venezia to stay apart from the city in the port. And they kept observation for first 30 days, but then they extended to the 40 days. So because they knew that during the 30 to 40 days, even if there is any patient who got infected, but without no clinical symptoms, so-called in the latent period, may develop into the disease within several weeks. So if the doctors observed any possible cases during the keeping time for 40 days, they rejected the people coming down from the ships and coming into the city. And we do not know how it was effective, but but we believe that this was one of the very smart way of the people then to prevent the whole city from the invasion of the disease. And the quarantine, we can see the mark of the quarantine in the Narita airport or the Kansai airport, any airport. And nobody, all of us are not so concerned about the quarantine. It just, there is some people from the official uniform watching the TV or by looking at the temperature of the people. But the old time, the quarantine was not that simple. The quarantine in Latin means the 40. So quarantine, the name of the quarantine is coming from the Latin 40, which is a days for the mandatory stay outside of the city. But we should consider whether the current quarantine system, like in the airport, is really effective or not. I'm afraid not. Because even if the temperature can be observed by the machine, it do not pick up the people who may have been infected. And during the latent period, there is no signs even with a high temperature. So I'm very much concerned about the quarantine system at the current days. And the second example is a smallpox. I don't think in this hall there is anyone who have actually looked or observed the patient of the smallpox. When I was young, when I visited some cities in India or the Bangladesh, we were able to see some people with this type of the face, with a scar, which indicates the previous exposure to the smallpox. But probably now we cannot see any person of this type of the scar. It is because this disease, this viral disease, has been completely eradicated, eliminated from the earth. And why? That is the issues which I would like to mention. Now, I will not go into the detail of the viral or microbiological or aspect of the disease, but it is very fatal disease. First, the person affected shows these exanthem, the papule, in all over the body, and in some case, the virus attacks the brain, then kill the patient. In some type of the extreme, so-called extreme smallpox cases, or in other words, the blackpox, the 100% of the patient will die. So the people in the past get terrified by the invasion of the outbreak of the smallpox. And the history is very wrong. By the observation of the mummies in Egypt, people believe that the smallpox were with the human beings from a long time ago. And the crusade, the movement of the crusade, is believed to be involved in the spread of the smallpox to the Western countries. And the original site of the smallpox is estimated to be somewhere in China. And in the United States, during the course of the invasion by the white people from England, from Britain, and the French, they fought the native Indians. And there is a literature indicating that some troops send the blanket to the Indians as a sign of the friendship. But the blanket was a blanket which was used to take care of the smallpox soldier. So they knew, without knowing that the smallpox is a virus-derived disease, they knew that something is contaminating the blanket that transferred the disease. So they sent the blanket, and until the invasion of the white people, the Northern America was believed to be completely free from the smallpox virus. So there was no immunity. So it killed many tribes of the American Indians. In any case, the recorded very big outbreak was observed in India in 1770, which killed 3 million. And in the recent days, the almost 60 years ago, 1950, after the World War II, the 50 million infected in the whole world, it is reported by the officials, and the 30% death was observed. At that time, the global population, whole global population, was far less than the current population, only 2.5 billion. Even in Japan, in our country, there is a literature indicating the very bad history of the invasion by the smallpox, starting from the Nara era. Some emperors got infected with the smallpox, and thus the smallpox had been the major concern not only in the lower class of the people, but also in the noble people. And in Japan, after the Meiji Revolution, there was a very big 3 types of the outbreaks. The first large outbreak killed 32,000, then 24,000, the 16,000. But gradually decreased. Then, in Japan, in 1955, about 60 years ago, the government or Ministry of Health observed only 1 case of the smallpox in the whole country. There was a quick reduction in the case. Why? And the WHO started the global initiative of the smallpox eradication, which was led by the 3 major doctors, including the Dr. Arita from Japan. Then, successfully, in 1980, WHO was able to declare our globe is completely free of the smallpox. It was a great success. But why it was possible? And why it is not possible for us to eradicate the other similar virus or bacteria induced the infectious diseases by vaccination, as the WHO did as the global initiative? There are several reasons. Now, we should know that this was possible simply because there was a very critical point, including that the smallpox is the disease of only mankind, not the other animals. But in the case of the other infectious disease, the wild animals are similarly affected. It is not possible to vaccinate all the animals in the field, in the in the forest, but it was possible to send every volunteers to any corner of the earth. They did it, and they immunized everyone. And also, the one more issue is the antigenicity or serotype of the virus. as you know, the influenza changes its serotype very quickly. So we know that the vaccine is not sometimes effective, sometimes effective. It's very... However, the smallpox vaccine was highly effective. 100% of the effect was observed. And there is no change in the virus. So once the big batch of the vaccine was produced, it is effective. And this was very stable, even in the absence of the fridge. So there are several factors which make it possible for the WHO people to eradicate, to eliminate, completely eliminate the smallpox from the world. But in other words, we should be aware that this may not be applicable to any other virus disease. Okay, because of the presence of a non-human host and very extensive antigenic variation acquired by the viruses and the presence of different cell type mutation. And also some viruses are very smart in escaping from the human immune responses. And the unstableness of the prepared vaccines, like a requirement for the fridge. We cannot bring the fridge into the wild forest in the Africa. And the last example is influenza, to which all of you are much familiar with in the daily life. And as you know, the influenza is a disease of usually the lung or upper respiratory tract, which causes the fever and the malaise and the fatigue and the myalgia or some pain, the body pain. It seldom affects the human life. And it is caused by the influenza virus. But looking back, when we look back the past history or literature, you may know that about 100 years ago, there was a very terrible outbreak or pandemic caused by the influenza virus A, which is called Spanish flu, Spain kaze in Japanese. And it affected all over the whole, the globes, particularly in the northern hemisphere. And this is the very famous photograph taken in the US that there was no available bed in the ordinary hospital. So the gymnasium or the school halls were made to transient hospital with a bed, so many beds. And it is believed that in this whole world, 500 million got infected and 50 million were killed. It was a tragedy. And even in Japan, this was experienced and killed many people in Japan. So what I would like to mention about the influenza virus is a unique structure of this virus. Influenza virus is an RNA virus with no DNA in a genome. But the uniqueness of this virus is usually the viral genome, whether either DNA virus or RNA virus, it is a single genome. However, this is very rare that the influenza virus has 8 segmented the strips of the genome. The whole 8 segments are required for the integration of the influenza virus A. So you may know that sometimes the influenza virus is categorized by its H and N number. H1N1, H2N2, which refers to the hemagglutinin, which is required for the invasion of the influenza virus into the human body. And N, neuraminidase, is an enzyme required for the multiplied virus detach and leave the cells to infect the next target of the cells. Okay. So because of the segmented the genome, there is a combination of different H type and N type. As you may know, that the Spanish flu was due to the H1N1 type influenza virus. But some decades after the Spanish flu, there was an outbreak called the Asian flu, Asia Kaze. It was caused by H2N2. And then Hong Kong flu, H3N2. So there was a big changes in the antigen of the virus or serotypes. And H1N1 again. Then in 1997 in Hong Kong, there was the quite unusual H5N1 avian, a bird type influenza, took place, which affected only 18 but killed 5 out of 18, which was very fatal infection. And all the microbiologists were so scared about the emergence of the bird influenza virus, which attacks the human beings. That's why the government are always very much concerned about the avian influenza, the emergence of the avian influenza. But in addition to this, in Mexico 2009, there was a swine, unusual type of the H1N1, which is derived from the pig, which affected many people and killed almost 10,000 people in the area. So, but microbiologists, especially the virologists, have learned that there is a species barrier in the field of the virus, particularly in the field of virus. For instance, you may believe that the influenza is a disease of the mankind, but there is an influenza virus that affects the whales or sea lion. I don't know whether the whales can cough and sneeze and I don't know, anyway. But the important point is that near the human being, the society of the human beings, there is a pig and the birds, especially the chickens or the goose, which is very close to the human being. And in addition, if you go to the southern part of the China, you will see the close cultivation of the pig and the avian, I mean the chickens. Even in the market, there is a living pigs and the living chickens are sold. So there is a chance that these virus may mix each other by exchanging the segment from this portion of the segment to the other, resulting in the creation of the quite unusual, unexperienced type of the virus. Now, some of them may exert a very highly virulence to the human beings. That is our concern. And the bird is vulnerable to any type of the H antigen and any type of N antigen. So this is the last slide, I mean. There is so many the man-made factors in addition to the changes of the microbes in the observation of the emerging or re-emerging infectious diseases. And in the medieval days, the trading was done mainly by the ship. However, now, this is a flight radar which is available in the internet on the certain period, certain time point. All over the world is covered by the huge numbers of the flights, aircraft. So it indicates that so many people and so many substances, materials are moving all over the world. And also, there is some vectors still exist, the mosquitoes, and our recent concern is a bat. Among the animal vector, the bat, fruit bat, is seemingly to be very important, playing a very important role in the transmission of the, for instance, the Japanese encephalitis or the rabies virus, and some other flavivirus type. So without eliminating all these animal vectors and insect vectors, we cannot completely become free of any infectious disease. And as a we should understand that the man-made factor like lifestyle change or trading or the traveling, the journey, and even the pets, introduction of the new type of the pets, like some unusual animal taken in the deep forest in Africa is introduced into the market in the Tokyo, market in the New York for the rich people as a very, very rare pets. That is sort of the small risk. So the lessons from the past outbreaks, I can indicate that we are still at a high risk of facing the outbreaks of infectious diseases, even in the developed countries. And the risk is facilitated or related to the human activity or development, technological development. And it's very difficult to exactly predict the type of the next coming emerging disease. It is very interesting and very, very not easy. And the quarantine, as I mentioned, which started several hundred years ago, may not be working very well at the present time. I don't have any alternative, and it may not be possible for all the passengers disembarking in the airplane to stay. Okay, you stay in the Narita airport for 40 days. It can be possible. And the sanitation and hygiene. And it is not certain, I'm not so certain whether the modern medicine and the medical science can eventually cope with or eliminate the emerging diseases. But I think to understand these is very important in facing the future of the human society. Okay, thank you very much.